Raising Maidens of Virtue, a study of feminine loveliness for mothers and daughters, by Stacy Mcdonald. Chapter 13, Colorful Flamingos. Take the millstones and grind the meal. Uncover, remove your veil. Strip off your skirt, uncover your legs. Cross over the rivers. Your nakedness will be uncovered. Your shame will be exposed, and I will take vengeance, and no man will stand in my way. Book of Isaiah, chapter 47, verses 2 through 3. Have you ever seen a flamingo? You know, the bird with the long legs and bright pink, ostentatious feathers. Do these pink showstoppers remind you of anyone? While accompanying my husband on a business trip recently, my daughter Melissa and I learned something new about flamingos. They wear bathing suits. The area we visited is a common vacation spot, a resort area, where most people feel strangely at liberty to shed their clothes and boldly parade around in public wearing nothing more than what we refer to as colored underwear. While this was certainly not our ideal of a vacation, we determined to enjoy each other, the weather, and the break from cell phones, computers, and schoolwork. Birds of a feather. Melissa and I were strolling through the hotel with Emma and Grace, my 1- and 2-year-old daughters, while my husband was in a meeting in one of his 2 bedrooms. As we walked, we found ourselves repeatedly needing to cast our eyes downward to avoid almost constant visual assault. Consider the following statements from the Westminster Assembly larger. Question 137 through 139. Question 137. What is the 7th commandment? Answer. The 7th commandment is thou shalt not commit adultery. What are the duties required in the 7th commandment? The duties required in the 7th commandment are chastity in body, mind, affections, words, and behavior, and the preservation of it in ourselves and others. Watchfulness over the eyes and all the senses, temperance, keeping of chaste, company, modesty in apparel, marriage by those that have not the gift of continency, conjugal love and cohabitation, diligent labor in our callings, shunning all occasions of uncleanness, and resisting temptation thereunto. Question 139. What are the sins forbidden in the 7th commandment? The sins forbidden in the 7th commandment, besides the neglect of the duties required, are adultery, fornication, rape, incest, sodomy, and all unnatural lust, all unclean imaginations, thoughts, purposes, and affections, all corrupt or filthy communications, or listening thereunto, wanton looks, imprudent or light behavior, immodest apparel, prohibiting of lawful and dispensing with unlawful marriages, allowing, tolerating, keeping of stews and resorting to them, entangling vows of single life, undue delay of marriage, having more wives or husbands than one at same time, unjust divorce or discretion, idleness, gluttony, drunkenness, unchaste company, lascivious songs, books, pictures, dancing, stage plays, and all other provocations to or acts of uncleanness, either in ourselves or others. A catechism is a form of instruction by means of questions and answers. The Westminster Confessions of Faith and shorter or larger catechisms were written in the 1640s by a group of 151 men, 10 lords and 20 commoners, and 120 more divines. Here comes another colorful flamingo, Melissa warned, looking down. Sure enough, a pretentious young bird came strutting by us, and the poor thing seemed to have lost most of her feathers. Blessed is he that watcheth and keepeth his garments, lest he walk naked and they be shamed. Revelation 16 and 15. Wishing to encourage my daughter, I pointed out the first long skirt I could find. I spoke too soon. My daughter shook her head, disappointed. Mom, she may be wearing a long skirt, but she walks like she's wearing a short skirt. She was right. Although the young lady was wearing a very long skirt, it was also very tight. Her backside was distinctly outlined, and exaggerated swing of her hips spoke even louder than what she was wearing. A heart condition. Reflecting on the experience, we were not aware that modesty is not only how much flesh we can expose or what we choose to wear. It is also how we speak and how we carry ourselves. It is truly a condition of the heart. 1 Peter chapter 3, verses 3 through 5. While we don't know whether this young lady was a Christian or not, we do know that her demeanor and carriage did not reflect Christ. Regardless of the plumage of her that she sported, her swagger said, "Look at me." In fact, it distinctly invited, "Look at my tail feathers." Proverbs chapter 7, verse 10. It may not be what was on her mind, but it was what she was communicating to others, and I am certain that men walking behind her heard the message loud and clear. You know the old saying, birds of a feather flock together? Well, it is true. We are surrounded by a culture that glorifies self, vulgarity, sloppiness, and perversion. Though we are surrounded by this culture, we do not have to be immersed in it. We are not of the same feather. So we shouldn't look as though we flock together. At the very least, we can certainly make sure that we have enough feathers to cover ourselves. I counsel thee to buy of me gold tried in the fire, so that you may become rich, and white garments, so that you may become dressed, and that the shame of your nakedness may not be exposed. And eye slave rub in your eyes, so that you may see. Book of Revelations, chapter 3, verses 18. May the Lord take your life and consecrate it to himself. May your very presence in a room convict and turn hearts to Christ. Bring honor to your earthly father while glorifying your Father in heaven. Share your heart. Have you ever thought about what you look like from behind? How tight or how sheer your clothing is? Ask your mother to stand behind you and watch you walk. Ask her if she thinks you're swinging your hips or swagger. How is modesty a heart issue? Discuss ways that heart issues show up in our actions. When you walk up a flight of stairs, what do men behind you see? What type of clothing would be the most modest in this situation? Have you ever worn a long flowing skirt or dress? How did it make you feel? How did others view you? Did it properly cover your private areas with no problem? Do you wear skirts that have slits that are cut higher than would actually wear your skirt? What happens when you walk or sit? What happens on a windy day? Is your clothing modest to the people who are sitting behind you in church? Ask your mother or a wise female friend to stand you while you bend over to pick up a book. Now do the same with them standing in front of you. What do you see? What did your father think? Raise your hands high above your head. Does your tummy show? You may think I'll never be walking around with my hands above my head. But this is a good all-around test. I've seen young ladies in blouses that seem modest until they bent over to pick up a toddler or had to reach up high on a shelf. How low is your neckline? Look in the mirror while holding onto your knees. Do you see cleavage? If so, everyone else does too. If you are fuller in the chest area, you may need to be more careful of certain fabrics. Sweaters, knits, and the newer stretchy fabrics tend to cling and accentuate the bust line, and tops that are too large fall open easily. Be aware and beware others. Eyes may be drawn to you. You want them to look at your face, not other parts of your body. While they are talking to you, avoid garments that hug areas which would be kept private. Would you feel naked wearing your nightgown or undergarments into a courtroom or a church? What would your pastor and his wife think if you invited them over to supper? Then answer the door in your underwear. Would they be shocked? Why do many of us think it is acceptable then to invite fellow Christians over for a pool party where everyone is wearing colored underwear? Discuss your answer with your mother. Book of Romans chapter 12, verse 2. Tonight when you get ready for bed, stand alone in your underwear. Pretend that your undergarments are made of stretchy, clingy fabric, like a bathing suit, and picture that they are colorful, maybe with a bright floral print. Now try to imagine walking outside of your room. Were you embarrassed at even the thought? How about walking to your neighbor's house? If your underwear is a bit skimpy, imagine adding just a few inches of fabric. Did it make it any better? Do you still have the urge to cover up? Discuss how we have been conditioned by the world to accept public nakedness, all in the name of recreation and fun, or even Christian liberty. How should we change our thinking? 1 Peter chapter 1, verses 14. Talk about how someone can be dressed modestly from head to toe and still reveal an immodest demeanor. Read Proverbs chapter 7, verses 10 through 11, and Proverbs chapter 31, 22, and 25. Look up the following words in the dictionary and discuss with your mother how they might apply to immodesty. Conceit, haughtiness, egocentric, ostentatious. What is the root sin of each of these offenses? Read all of Proverbs chapter 7 and then read Matthew Henry's commentary on it below. Of the person tempting, not a common prostitute, for she was a married wife, and for aught that appears, lived in reputation among her neighbors, not suspected of any such wickedness, and yet, in the twilight of the evening, when her husband was abroad, abominably imprudent, she in here described by her dress. She had the attire of a harlot, gaudy and flaunting, to set her off as a beauty. Perhaps she painted as Jezebel, and went with her neck and breast bare, loosed, and indicible. The purity of the heart will show itself in the modesty of the dress, which becomes woman professing godliness. By her craft and management, she is subtle of heart, mistress of all the arts, of wheeling and knowing how by all her caresses to serve her own base purposes. By her temper and carriage, she is loud and stubborn, talkative and self-willed, nosy and troublesome, willful and headstrong, all tongue and will have her say, right or wrong, impatient of check and control, and cannot bear to be counseled, much less reproved by her husband, parents, ministers, or friends. She is a daughter of Belial, and that will endure no yoke. By her place, not her own house, she hates the confinement and employment of that. Her feet abide not there any longer than must. She is all for gadding abroad, changing place and company. Now is she without in the country, under pretense of taking the air. Now in the streets of the city, under pretense of seeing how the market goes. She is here, she is there, she is everywhere but where she should be. She lies in wait at every corner to pick up such as she can pay a prey. Virtue is a penance to those to whom home is a prison. Matthew Henry's commentary on the whole Bible, New Modern Edition, complete and unbrigaded, Henderson Publishers of 1991, page 679. Do you see what could be described as the attire of a harlot in the styles offered in most department stores today? What do you think is meant by her feet abide not in her house? Was the woman described in Proverbs 7 modest? Was she focused on serving her husband and household faithfully, or on gratifying her self-will? Men tend to sin by lusting after women, while women tend to sin by lusting to be lusted after. Lust is the very opposite of love because it takes you instead of gives. If a maiden knowingly exposes private parts of her body or wears clothing that might incite lust in a young man, then she is actively selfish. Again, this is the opposite of what Scripture describes as love. Do you think the Proverbs 7 woman loved the young men she enticed? Do you think she enjoyed flaunting her body? Have you ever chosen an outfit because you thought it might get the attention of a boy? Pray about your answer. Discuss the selfish motives behind choosing your wardrobe this way. Charity suffereth long and is kind. Charity envieth not. Charity valueth not itself. It is not puffed up. Doth not behave itself unseemly. Seeketh not her own. It is not easily provoked. Thinketh not evil. Rejoiceth not in iniquity, but rejoiceth in the truth. Beareth all things, believeth all things, hopeth all things, and endureth all things. 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verses 4 through 7. Are you dressing for the approval of man or God? Is your goal to impress or attract others, or be pleasing to God and to glorify Him? Be honest. After you discuss this chapter, spend some time praying together. Prayer. Dear Lord, show me areas in myself that are unclean or displeasing to you. Help me to remember that my physique body is a reflection of my spiritual self and to help others to see you in all areas of my life. Wash me and make me clean. Enable me to glorify you in my body and spirit. Amen.